All right, good afternoon, everyone. Oh, come on, good afternoon. It's an exciting time to be in the White House, huh? Amen. To talk about jobs and economic recovery in our communities. It is my pleasure to welcome you here for this wonderful conversation. My name is Joshua Dubois, and I'm Executive Director of the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, and we are so delighted to have you all here in the room and also joining us on the live stream at whitehouse.gov/live. We're being streamed on the web today, so please be on your best behavior, everyone, okay? We are so thrilled to have this conversation about how the White House and the entire administration can connect with you, community-based leaders and faith-based leaders, to improve economic development and job creation in our communities. We have a packed house, as you see, and the president is thrilled to have you here. In fact, before he went on his current trip, I let him know that we're going to be getting together this afternoon in the South Court Auditorium, and I let him know some of his good friends, Desiree and Bishop and others, we're going to be here. And he asked me to do something, so you're just going to have to bear with me, and I'm sorry in advance. I've been working for President Obama for about 8 years now, and when he asks you to do something, you do it. So if you all wouldn't mind raising your hands like this, please. Sorry. In the back there, too, please. Thanks. Could you move them like this, please? Okay, I promised President Obama I'd shake everybody's hand this afternoon. So I'm sorry, y'all. I did my job, though. Amen. So listen, I want to begin by thanking a few great folks who were really instrumental in pulling this wonderful event off, and they deserve our acknowledgement. First and foremost, we have Jerry Flavin. Jerry is the director of our Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnership Center at the Small Business Administration. He's not ordained, but I like to call him Reverend or Bishop Flavin because of his great work engaging the faith community. And he was the visionary for this event and really drove the entire event. We also have John Kelly. John is our senior policy advisor here in the White House office, who's been working to coordinate the entire team that put this together. And we have other federal partners, and especially Marie Johns, who is a great friend of mine, who I'll introduce in just a few moments, but also Assistant Secretary John Fernandez from the Department of Commerce, Deputy Assistant Secretary Roberta Gassman from the Department of Labor, Undersecretary Doug O'Brien from the Department of Agriculture, and Manager Tricia Kearney-Willis from the Department of Treasury. Let's give them all a round of applause for pulling us together. And most importantly, I want to thank all of you. We simply can't accomplish what our country needs to accomplish in terms of getting folks back in jobs and developing our local economies if it wasn't for you, for community-based leaders, for faith-based leaders, for folks who are putting folks back on the right track in terms of employment, and also looking out for the least of these, those who may not have any other source of support. So on behalf of the president, and I don't only want to welcome you, I also want to thank you for the tremendous work you do every single day. So my office, the Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, is really designed to be a supporter of you. Our job is to come alongside and support local nonprofits, both faith-based and secular, in your work of delivering services to people in need. Now, if you don't know about some of the key things that we do, we need to plug you into them, in addition to the jobs and economic recovery work we're going to talk about today. For example, we have an office at the Department of Agriculture that helps local congregations plug into feeding programs and helps feed hungry kids in the summertime in partnership with local congregations. The director of our Department of Agriculture is this very excited young man back here, Max Finberg, who would love to connect with you on that. We have an office at the Department of Education that helps local groups connect with their public school in their neighborhood and provide resources to their local public schools. And I believe we have some folks from the Department of Education that are going to be coming. We have an office at the Veterans Administration where our director, right here, Reverend E. Terry Lavelle, Terry, raise your hand, works with local organizations and congregations to serve veterans in their communities. So on and so forth. All across government, there are these small offices that are really help navigate the federal government for local groups, both faith-based and secular. If you haven't already worked with us, if you haven't already heard from us, we want to connect to you. If everyone wouldn't mind taking out your pen, I want to give you an email address. You're going to hear a lot of things today, a lot of great information, but please remember this one. To connect to our office, make sure you're on our listservs and make sure that we're sending relevant information to you. That email address is WHPartnerships. WH is in White House. So WHPartnerships at who.eop.gov. Again, that's WHPartnerships at who.eop.gov. drop us a quick note when you leave here today. Let us know that you were at this session and that you want to hear more from our office, and we'll add you to our relevant listservs, let you know about upcoming opportunities to connect. So we're here today to talk about how we can work together specifically to support economic development and job creation in our communities. We know that faith-based and neighborhood organizations have a crucial role to play in economic development. So we want to give you the tools you need to create jobs and business opportunities for your parishioners, your congregations, and your communities. Now, we hope this is just the start of the conversation. Our hope is that you will come away from today with a greater understanding of the administration's initiatives and the resources that you can leverage in partnership with us. Even more importantly, we hope you leave here with a set of relationships with the directors that I just mentioned and a number of other folks that you can tap into in the days ahead. You'll meet administration officials who truly want to partner with you. You'll learn about government programs that you can take advantage of. And you will hear, importantly, from your peers who have done this work already. So we're excited about the conversation, but we're even more excited about what's going to happen after we leave here today. Now I'd like to introduce Marie Johns. Marie is a wonderful friend and the Deputy Administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration. Marie has been a leader on the issue of jobs and economic development in partnership with community-based and faith-based organizations from day one. She has spent her career working alongside and supporting small businesses as a corporate executive and as a civic leader. Marie founded the Washington, D.C. Technology Council, which also works to support technology entrepreneurs here in the nation's capital. She chaired the D.C. Chamber of Commerce as well as its Small Business Committee. Now at the Small Business Administration, that is, Marie is leading the agency's efforts to expand its reach and put more tools in the hands of small businesses in underserved communities. Please help me welcome Marie Johns.
Thank you very much, Joshua, for that kind introduction, and it has been a pleasure working with your office on putting together what for the SBA, at least, is a first opportunity and one that we have been so excited about, and that is bringing together faith leaders of all stripes to come to the White House to talk about what we view as your critical role in building the economies in your jurisdictions, connecting with small businesses there, and really driving forward the agenda on job creation that we all know is such an important one for our country. All of us in the Obama administration are looking forward to working more closely with the churches and the mosques and the synagogues and the neighborhood-based organizations that you represent to ensure that citizens everywhere in every corner of our country know about what the administration is doing and what tools we have available for you for small business growth and job creation. Even though on your day of worship, your conversations and sermons and points may focus more on social issues, we all know that we really can't move the ball on the social agenda in this country unless we also have a very strong agenda for economic growth that includes everyone and not just some. I want to give you a great example of what I think is the power that you have and what we're hoping to connect to and capitalize on for the benefit of our country. I was in Chester, Pennsylvania not long ago with Mayor Wendell Butler and a group of his team as well as other administration officials to be part of the launch of an initiative called SC2, Strong Cities, Strong Communities. This great initiative is the work of Melody Barnes and Derek Douglas from the Domestic Policy Council, and what it does is to connect federal officials in partnership with local leaders. There are 6 SC2 cities around the country. Detroit is one, New Orleans, Fresno, California, et cetera. And it's a twist on federal-local partnerships that I think is very effective. It's not a case of the feds coming in saying, we're from the federal government and we're going to tell you how we're going to help you, but rather, here we are, Mayor Butler, we know that you have a strategic plan for your city, and so we want to work with you to help you implement that strategic plan. In other words, locally led, the local vision is the driving force, and the federal partners are there to help make that happen. It was a great day with Mayor Butler and his team, but one of the standout opportunities that I had that day was to meet a woman, Cheryl Stevens, who has a restaurant, Cheryl Stevens Southern Style Restaurant. Cheryl was a powerful woman, a very spiritual woman, and I have to admit that I got teary listening to her and to her testimony because she told me about how she ended up starting her business. She was in church one day, and she was listening to the sermon, and the pastor was preaching about how we all are required to use our God-given gifts to help make the community better, and that we need to focus on our gifts and how to develop those gifts in order to give, to make our communities better. And as Cheryl listened to the sermon and meditated on the word, she decided at that moment that she was going to start a restaurant. And so Cheryl, fortunately, connected to the SBA. She took advantage of our counseling programs that we offer in nearly 1,000, through over 1,000 small business development centers around the country. And through the counseling and prayer and hard work, she opened her restaurant. And for Cheryl, it's not just about the restaurant, because through that restaurant, she's now employing other people. She is giving back to the community through mentoring program, encouraging other young people to look at culinary arts as a business opportunity. That's the power of a sermon. That's the power of a good word that somebody can hear and act on and then turn around and do something great for their community. I am prayerful that we'll have the opportunity to share dozens of those types of stories from our discussions here today. We want to, as Joshua said, this is a start of a conversation that we want to continue and grow over the coming weeks and months. And we also, Joshua has introduced the various faith-based leaders in the federal agencies around the government. And I want to, again, salute my colleague, Jerry Flavin, who is a terrific partner and whose hard work is all through this gathering, and we're deeply grateful to him for his leadership in pulling this together. I also want to acknowledge Aaron Andrew, who was his partner in that, and Jerry, thank you again. Thank you. A little bit about the SBA. We at the SBA know that there really aren't a lot of direct ways that you would connect to what we do. Churches are not 8A companies. You don't do federal contracting. But we do have a number of initiatives where we think if you had more information about what we do, that in turn you could provide that information to your congregants and therefore allow us to deepen our reach into your communities. For example, we have a microloan program that is nationwide, which is often the very important first opportunity for startups in particular to get access to the capital that they need for their businesses to grow. And I've got a few examples of organizations who are here today who have connected with us and who are on the path to providing just that sort of service in their communities. For example, Rob Martin. Is Rob here? Thank you, Rob, from United Virginia. Rob is working with us. Dolores Thomas from Joseph Center. Welcome, Dolores. Eduardo Millet is here from McGowan Chamber. Hello, Eduardo. And then Tony Cara from the Disabled Veterans Assistance Foundation. We're very excited about, where is Tony? Hey, Tony, nice to see you. Tony leads the VAF, and they are our first nationwide microlender, and with a particular focus on service-disabled veterans, and we're very excited about the work that we will be doing together. And then, of course, there's our friend Hilda Kennedy, who I saw Hilda, who's here from California, AMPAC Tri-State CDC. And Hilda really is a pioneer in this work. She is a first lady of a great church in California, but her organization is connected with the SBA through our 504 loan program, one of our largest loan programs. And we're also honored that Hilda is serving on our new Council on Underserved Communities. So just wanted to point out these wonderful people to let you know that these kinds of partnerships are already happening. We're looking for them to grow, and that's the beauty of today's event. So we have two panels today, one with administration officials who are going to talk to you about the various programs that each of us have in our respective agencies, and then we're going to hear from a panel of your peers, individuals who are doing important work in the community, who represent institutions like yours, so that they can tell you what their experience has been, and hopefully we'll get you to thinking along the same lines. Then following that, we'll have a breakout session that will be an opportunity either to dig deeper in any of the subject areas, as well as do some brainstorming, and then we will talk about next steps at the end of the day. So now, it's my pleasure to introduce our fine moderator, Sheena Wright. Sheena is the CEO of the Abyssinian Development Corporation in Harlem, USA. She's a terrific leader in the area of economic development. She is a tireless advocate for the people of Harlem and nationally known for her tremendous work. She is perfect to lead our panel because she does this work every day, and so we're so delighted and grateful that she accepted the call to serve in this role. She's a graduate of Columbia School of Law and a native of the Bronx. Sheena, thank Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I can ask the panelists for the first session to come on up on the stage and join Marie Johns. That'd be great. John Fernandez, Roberta Gassman, Doug O'Brien, Tricia Kearney-Willis. Thank you. So we'll get settled. And I'll keep an eye out for Jerry to make sure that we are on time. I know we're a little bit behind. So greetings this afternoon. Definitely want to start off giving a hearty thanks to the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships for this convening, Joshua Dubois for his leadership, and certainly Marie Johns and Jerry Flavin for putting this all together. I was very excited to be asked to participate because I really feel as though this is going to be a different type of discussion and a different type of panel. We've all gone to lots of panel discussions, and sometimes we come away with some inspiration, some information, but I think the goal today is to really walk away with some practical, actionable steps to implement on the ground. This is a group of leaders who are doing tremendous and amazing work. You are justly inspired, and you know a lot about what the needs are and what some of the solutions are. And I think this really is a higher level conversation about how to move the needle a little bit further and what types of strategic ways you need to extract some of the resources that are going to be discussed here today to move your agenda forward. There are an enormous amount of policies and programs and initiatives, but the question that we seek to answer today is how exactly do we exact what we need in order to get the work done on the ground. Faith without works is dead, right? Amen. And I just want to point out two more things before we turn over to the panelists. This body certainly represents faith and community leaders that are on the front lines. No one appreciates more the challenges of this global catastrophic economy than the people in this room. The people in this room lead organizations and institutions that are the economic engines and lifeblood of their community in many ways, as well as the major service providers on the ground. And so we appreciate that our parishioners, our constituents are suffering, and they're coming to our doorstep for the answers and the solutions. So the goal, again, today is to get some munitions and armor for the battle ahead, because we know it's going to be long and we know it's going to be hard. What the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships and the SBA has convened is really a group of top officials in the government. I mean, these are the folk that are making the decisions. They're developing the programs and policies. They know where all the resources are. They know where all the challenges are in accessing them. And so they're really going to impart to us some very, very specific knowledge about how we can work together more effectively. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of them, and then we're going to just launch in and allow them to let us know what specifically is going on in their agency and what specifically we need to do to access the resources that we need. Marie Johns was introduced, and we are so grateful for her service and leadership. Next on my list here is John Fernandez. That's John. John Fernandez was appointed by President Obama to serve as the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Economic Development in 2009. That's part of the Commerce Department. As the administrator of the U.S. Economic Development Administration, he has positioned the agency to play a critical role in advancing President Obama's national innovation policy and implemented fiscally sound strategies to align EDA's resources and programs to drive 21st century development and increase job creation. The U.S. Department of Commerce's Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship is under his charge in making smart investments that engage entrepreneurs, promote innovation, and accelerate innovation clusters, and we're grateful for his presence today. We also have Roberta Gassman. There she is. She is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Employment and Training in the U.S. Department of Labor. Prior to her appointment, she served in the cabinet of Governor Jim Doyle as the Secretary of the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. As Wisconsin's longest-serving labor secretary, she led over 1,600 employees in strengthening Wisconsin's workforce, providing training, employment, and dislocated worker services, working with employers to fill jobs, enforcing workers' rights, and administering unemployment insurance, apprenticeship, and workers' compensation. Under her leadership, Wisconsin received national recognition for targeting, training, resources to regional industry partnerships in areas such as advanced manufacturing, healthcare, clean energy, and technology. Next up, we have Doug O'Brien. Doug O'Brien is the Deputy Undersecretary for Rural Development at the United States Department of Agriculture, where he previously served as Senior Advisor to Secretary Vilsack and Chief of Staff to Deputy Secretary Merrigan. Before joining the USDA, Mr. O'Brien served as the Assistant Director at the Ohio Department of Agriculture. In this capacity, he assisted the director in administering the day-to-day operations of that department and such areas as plant industries, animal health, and its laboratories. In addition, he was responsible for developing the department's biofuels, bioproducts, and renewable energy policy efforts. And then last but not least, we have Tricia Kearney-Willis. She is the manager of the Office of Training and Outreach at the U.S. Department of the Treasury, Community Development Financial Institutions Fund. She oversees public and private sector stakeholders' relationships to increase awareness of CDI fund programs and national outreach and training initiatives for community development financial institutions and community development entities to increase awareness of CDI fund programs. Prior to joining the Department of the Treasury, Ms. Kearney-Willis was a vice president in Consumer Real Estate Division at Bank of America Corporation in Washington, D.C., and served as an assistant VP and relationship client manager in the Community Development Division. So as you can see, this is a great group. They understand what needs doing, and they have developed and implemented tools to get it done. So first, we're going to ask each of the panelists to just provide a brief overview of some of the specific programs that are available at your agencies that this esteemed group could take advantage of. Marie, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you, Sheena. Can you hear me in the back? All right. I'm used to bellowing, so.
You want to do that?
I've been there.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, thank you. At the SBA, we are, first to set a bit of context, the economy, we know the story. It's in a very trying state right now. We are coming out of the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. So we're coming out of the Great Recession with a capital R. And while some parts of the country have begun to post a pretty good recovery, what we were watching at the SBA was how that recovery was advancing. And we saw clearly that it was uneven. And so as a result, we focused on creating some new tools to specifically help spur further economic development in underserved communities. And by that, we mean communities of color, rural communities, veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, Native American-owned businesses, et cetera. So we've done a couple of things specifically. Created a council for underserved communities that's headed by Catherine L. Hughes, the founder of Radio 1 and TV 1. Kathy Hughes is an iconic business leader in her own right, and yet she also was an SBA borrower early in her career. So she knows our agency, and we have assembled 20 terrific people from around the country. As I mentioned, Hilda Kennedy is one of our council members, and they all bring their own expertise, whether they are lenders, small business owners, economists, et cetera. The other thing we did was looking at access to capital, which has been a constant lament from small businesses, and particularly minority-owned businesses during this economic time. We work with over 3,000 lenders around the country in our SBA lending, but we knew that the commercial banks largely turned their backs on small business lending once the credit crash of 2008 occurred. So what we did was decided to, for the first time in history, to expand our lending portfolio to include non-depository lenders like CDFIs, which fall under Tricia's guidance, credit unions, microloan intermediaries, so that those lenders who are often smaller, much more connected to the small business community in their jurisdictions, more knowledgeable about small businesses, where they operate, and have a very high-touch approach to their lending style. We are now working with them, and they are part of our portfolio of lenders. This is a new lending program, Community Advantage, and we're looking forward to having these new lenders in our portfolio really making a difference in providing access to capital to small businesses around the country. The final point I'll make is we are very focused on outreach, because as I travel the country regularly, it's painful for me to hear how many people don't really know what the SBA does, what we offer. They think of us as a loan agency. They have no idea about our the fact that we touch a million entrepreneurs every year with our training and technical assistance. So a big part of my mission and leading the team in this effort is to make sure that our outreach is expanded. That's what today is about. I'm happy to see L. Diane Bennett in the room. I spoke to Kojic, her AIM conference earlier this year. We want to come to you. We want to make sure that you know everything that we're doing so that your members can take advantage of the resources that the taxpayers are providing.
Great. Should I go next?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, I'm going to come to the podium, if that's all right. Get a little height when you're not even 5'1", you gotta stand up when you can. Well, good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here with you. It's wonderful to be a part of this program. Thank you for being our moderator. I am, as you heard, the Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Department of Labor. I bring you greetings from Department of Labor Secretary Hilda Solis, and also the Assistant Secretary that I work for, Jane Oates. These are two passionate, engaged, committed leaders. Our Secretary's mantra and her vision is good jobs for everyone. That's what the Department of Labor is committed to and about. And I'm really glad that Phil Tom, where's Phil? Phil is the director, and also Ben Siegel is the deputy director of DOL's Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. And so they have been active, I know, with many of you. What I want to just talk about a bit is comment on how I know many of you have been participating in some of our programs, but I want to speak about the programs ahead that are going to have available resources that I hope that you and those you represent will take use of by forming collaborations and partnerships. And then I also wanted to speak to President Obama's new American Jobs Act, because in there are some employment and training initiatives that if this legislation were to pass, which we truly hope it does, it would offer some real benefits in the area of training and employment, and we worked on those initiatives in our department. I'm very glad to be here with my colleagues from other agencies because I want you to know we are very committed to breaking down silos, working together to advance economic development. And so we work on that every day, and it's very important to us. So I know that some of you have participated in different programs, the Pathways Out of Poverty program, our Transitional Jobs program. You have worked on some of the special funding we've made available to work on reintegration for ex-offenders and job clubs that our faith-based folks have been leading. So I really thank you for that. And in fact, in our program, I know that one of the speakers is very active in one of those programs, and so I'm glad we're going to get to hear from him. I had my agenda out, and I just kind of lost it for the moment. But let me tell you about some of the upcoming opportunities where funds will be available and partnerships coming together to seek those funds can make a real difference. First, I want to talk about what shorthand is REXO, which stands for Reintegration of Ex-Offenders. And at our department, at the Department of Labor, we have had various rounds of funding made available, and these have gone particularly to faith-based and community organizations to help adults and youth ex-offenders get the training, the support in the case of youth, community service experiences that will help them get on a path to what our secretary and we at DOL believe in, pathways to good paying jobs. At DOL, our administration, the Employment and Training Administration, is where the country's workforce system is led. So it's a federal program that works in partnership with the states and with regional workforce development boards and agencies. And that partnership runs the hundreds of one-stop centers in the country, and then we use discretionary funds where we can to make these special initiatives available. So we're an important place for you. So in the REXO program, grants have been made, and what is coming ahead is what we will see will be a series of grants that will make $20 million available for adults. We are anticipating to see 17 grants that can last for about 27 months each. And for the adult population, we would see 1.2 million available for each of those grants. So that is something to be watching for, and the publication of availability we see happening this winter. That will be followed in spring by grants that have training and service learning for young ex-offenders, or those who've been in the juvenile justice system. And out of that funding, we would anticipate that 15 grants would be made. They'd be about 1.5 million each, and they would last for 30 months. So these are some real opportunities for faith-based organizations to come together and go after those opportunities. And then I wanted to mention a new initiative that you're going to be hearing more about very, very soon, but the Trade Adjustment Assistance Community College and Career Training Grant Program. Through this program, which was first funded through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, total $2 billion are to be made available over 4 years, and the first round of grants is very, very, very soon to be announced. And it will be very important that as these dollars go to colleges, to traditionally black colleges, to community colleges, that partnerships come together and that folks work with community organizations to help make these dollars available to advance training and career paths for workers in need. So that will be an important opportunity to be looking for. And then I also wanted to mention the Workforce Innovation Fund, because through this fund, $125 million has been made available, and it will go to states and to regional partnerships, but it will be in the best interest of this program if community groups are partnering with states and regions in the execution of those grants. And so I want to make sure that that is on your wavelength. Very briefly, programs that we run that can be of great service. The Job Corps program is a residential, mostly, training program that serves disadvantaged young adults, young people, 16 to 24, as they live on site. Most of them do, some commute, but most are on site. They get training, they get GED work, and they get real skills training. So I hope that you will consider the Job Corps a resource for the folks that you work with, as well as the apprenticeship program. And the apprenticeship program is a partnership, labor and management, and we reach out and provide training where people can move into the skilled trades and other occupations that are demand occupations. Right now, we have a great focus in apprenticeship of trying to focus on pre-apprenticeship. How do we give people even the skills to be able to be successful in apprenticeship? And how do we enhance the diversity within the country's apprenticeship program? As I close, let me mention President Obama's leadership on helping to put America back to work and his strong support for all of these initiatives. And the new American Jobs Act, as I mentioned, we worked very closely with the President's advisors in DOL, and two initiatives that we are excited about. One is a $5 billion package called Pathways to Work. Some of the money through that package would be made available on a competitive basis through the states on a formula basis for the employment of youth, during the school year, disadvantaged youth, and also during the summer, and some would be for adults. And then also there would be, on a competitive basis, dollars made available to spark in communities, particularly of areas of high need, particular innovations in training. So this would bring more resources out around the country. Additionally, included in the package, and one of the programs the Department of Labor runs in the Employment and Training Administration, is unemployment insurance. And the President has proposed an extension of the emergency unemployment compensation benefits. That would be a very good thing for the many people who are out of work in our country. He's also proposing enriched employment services for folks who have been unemployed for a long time to help them reintegrate back into the workforce and to their next job. And then also a special $4 billion package, which we are excited about. One is Bridge to Work. I can talk about more of them during the Q&A, but to help people who have been out of work get connected through work experience while they get their unemployment insurance, but to be considered employees with labor protections and to get the work experience needed to be successful in work. There's also an initiative in there to allow people on unemployment to start their own businesses, which really fits into this forum today. That's been used successfully in some states, and the President would like to see this happen all over the country, where you could use your unemployment and help use that to support a business plan with your regional small business resource to get your own small business started. So we at DOL and the Employment and Training Administration are here to work with you. We believe you are a key part of putting America back to work. We consider you our partners. I did bring with, and I'll put them, I think, at the front of the stage here, I brought resources that give you information about some of the programs that can be available to the people you serve, and also our website, as well as a telephone number that you can call where we can get you all the help that you need. We look forward to working with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank you. What did I tell you? You can get in the whole thing, the nitty-gritty. Wonderful.
I'm just going to hang here.
Okay, that's great. Save us a little time.
I'm short too, but you know. Anyway, thanks for coming. I'm really happy to be a part of this. And as Sheena said, this administration has worked very hard to break down silos, and there's a tremendous amount of collaboration. You know, I do panels, it seems, almost about every other week with Doug and our friends at Labor and elsewhere. In fact, at 2 o'clock, I may have to bug out a little bit early to do a call with Secretary Solis and Administrator Karen Mills on another joint initiative. So there's a lot of collaboration going on, because we know that's a smarter way to do business. I also want to acknowledge, you know, that Sheena said that the most important thing today is to learn from others. Well, I can tell you there's a few people here that you can really learn from as it relates to EDA. One of them is Willie Taylor, who's in the back here. He runs the regional office for EDA out of Philadelphia. The way EDA works, we work through 6 regional offices. We're only as good as our stakeholders on the ground. Everything we do is bottom-up, locally driven initiatives. We don't have formula dollars. Everything's a competitive process, but it's all very flexible. So we have a tremendous amount of latitude to work with you on the priorities you have for your communities, and then we can make our dollars work for you, not the other way around. So Willie's here. Della Clark's here. She's in the back. She runs an enterprise center. She was an EDA grantee. I know Reverend Robert Lee's here as well, Fresh Ministries. I think you may be hearing from some of these folks later. He also knows how to work with the EDA. The other thing Sheena said was, you know, you need to learn how to work with us, but also where the money is. These guys got the money. They have some money. All joking aside, I mean, we do also want to acknowledge Cedric Grant from the Faith-Based Office at the Department of Commerce. Some of you may know Cedric. We really do understand the challenges in the communities we serve. Really, by law, EDA works in communities that have high levels of distress. Our eligibility requirements are based on unemployment rates, on per capita income, and the goal is to help build assets in communities where you can be productive, create jobs, create new businesses, and most importantly, create opportunities for our people. And, you know, as we do this work, you know, I know how challenging it is. I used to be a mayor, and I know that people trying to do economic development, it's always hard. In this economy, it's really hard. Not only do we have the pressure of just what's going on in the economy, but trying to raise money, the fundraising that you do, putting you know, all the time into that. In a climate like this, it's really difficult. So I sincerely appreciate the work you're doing, and our job is to be a good partner for you and to help you do your work even better. And to the extent that we can, we look forward to doing that with you. I wanted to acknowledge, or at least use a couple of examples of some projects that we've been involved in to maybe spark some interest. One I had mentioned was the Fresh Ministries. Back in 2002, EDA awarded about an $850,000 grant to Reverend Lee's group to build an incubator, help people start businesses. The project has been very successful, and I know he'll tell you more about it later. In fact, it was so successful this April, we awarded an additional grant to his organization to expand it. It was a $472,000 grant. That's going to enable them to grow. They expect to be able to create another 100 jobs and create even more businesses. And these, you know, they're serving, you know, very targeted, low, moderate income folks in the community. Very impactful. We're very grateful for the work that they're doing and glad to be a partner there. Another project I want to mention is in St. Louis. It's called the St. Patrick Center. And unfortunately, they couldn't be with us today, but recently we awarded a grant to the St. Patrick Center for $3.5 million for their Begin Center. And it's a fascinating place to visit because it's almost a vertically integrated system, helping the homeless folks, helping folks on the verge of being homeless with job training, employment opportunities. They created their own businesses. They have an incubator as well. And it's just a real powerful place to see the kind of work that's going on there. And they're doing just tremendous, tremendous work. In fact, that was one of the first places I visited after I was confirmed in 2009. I went out there where we made the grant award and got to meet the folks running that organization, and it's a really powerful group. Another example I wanted to bring up is Respond Inc. in Camden, New Jersey. Had an opportunity to visit with them as well when we invested $1.5 million for it's called a New Worker Development Center, and they have an automotive technology program doing just, I mean, you talk to the employers in that sector, there's high demand for those jobs. And Respond was able to get a pipeline of community members to train, to go right into employment. It's been very successful. And again, it's a very powerful place to visit. In addition to the Auto Training Center, they've developed a culinary arts program that's linked to their justice system to target recidivism. And they've got one of the best commercial kitchens in that area. And they've been able to recruit some of the top chefs from that area. And when we were there, the chefs who were there, you know, they're from around the world. One of them, I think, is from Italy, Willie? This Italian guy, just passionate about helping people, but also about food and nutrition. And they're just cranking out some incredible stuff. But most importantly, they're creating opportunities and trying to tackle this recidivism issue. Now, in my job at EDA, you know, as Sheena mentioned, we do a lot of work in the innovation space. I travel all over the country. I get to see really cool stuff, you know, all kinds of biochemical stuff, sustainable, you know, energy, really high-tech, just wonderful, powerful stuff. But I got to tell you, when I visit Respond, and when I was at St. Louis, I was never prouder of my agency. This is the hard work, and we're glad to be your partner.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, I'm Doug O'Brien, and I'm with the Department of Agriculture, and I'll keep my comments very brief. First, I want to just echo all of my colleagues here and thank you for the work that you do. It's really a privilege to be with you today, and I'm humbled by it, actually. I get to also work with these people who, like you, are committed to serving their different communities. And I want to mention a few people from the USDA and sort of a transition to the second point of I just want to focus on where are points of contact for USDA. And then I'll just talk a little bit about some specific programs and kind of general things that we can do to partner with you and to support your mission. First person I want to mention is Max Finberg, who is back here. He's the director of the USDA Office of Faith-Based Neighborhood Partnerships, and an excellent contact. They have a good web presence, and for anything that might pique your interest, please make sure to check with them. Denise Scott is sitting back here. She worked with me in the office of the undersecretary, and if she's still around here today, she's a great point of contact. One other person that I want to mention who was a colleague and served in the administration recently and now is serving his home community is Victor Vasquez, who's over here, and we got to work together at USDA for some time, and now he's serving his community in different ways, so it's great to see Victor. So we, at USDA, I will mostly talk about the rural development programs, but I'll take just 1 minute to talk about some of the other programs at USDA. It's a big organization. Most of our focus and authority is on rural places, and that's places under 50,000, some of our programs under 20,000 or even under 10,000. But actually, the biggest program we have at USDA is our food nutrition service programs, primarily our supplemental nutrition assistance program. So that comes out of USDA. Obviously, we partner with the states and local folks to deliver that program. We also work with farmers, obviously. That's not a big surprise. But small farmers, big farmers, and urban farmers. Della, I just got to sit next to at the beginning, who's utilized EDA programs. She's also utilized some USDA programs on urban gardening. We also work with people who do conservation on working lands, farmers or other landowners, and the USDA is the home to the Forest Service, who actually has a huge footprint and has its own version of Job Corps and does some great things. But I want to talk about rural development, the mission area that I get to work with. We do, our mission is very complementary to all of the folks up here, but focus more exclusively on rural places. We do community development and economic development is one way to think about it. And on community development, we help small towns and municipalities do basic infrastructure stuff. So in most really small towns that have a sewer problem or need a new water tower or a new water system, most times we're somewhere back there doing some grants and loans for them. We do broadband. Now it's a relatively new program for us, helping build out that critical infrastructure to meet today's demands. And important on broadband that I want to highlight, not only do we help finance building out that system, but we have grants to help nonprofits and communities do telemedicine, do educational type of work. So if you wanted to set up a classroom so that your folks in your local community could access the training that's only available, at the university or the Capitol or something like that, we have funds that can help you do that. Same, that telemedicine is really a key program for remote areas, so they're able to get to that technology, get to the experts that might be in bigger places. So that's a program I want to highlight. Another program I want to highlight is community facilities. Now, while we don't have the authority to help someone build a church, if you want to build a clinic, a shelter, a food pantry, another building or facility that's critical to the community's needs, that's an eligible purpose. These days, it's mostly loan side that we have, but they're very favorable terms, and a lot of times it's just a piece of the puzzle when you put it all together that we can be there and help you get that done. The other work we do is much like SBA. We work with small businesses. We have guaranteed loan programs. We have revolving loan programs that nonprofits many times will be the steward of that revolving loan that will give you a grant or a loan to kind of start that up in a rural place. We have a sort of a burgeoning micro-entrepreneurship program that can help provide both technical assistance and revolving loan. So all of those tools. And I'm actually going to stop now, except I want to mention where can you access our programs. Max is a great resource. Rural Development, though, has 500 offices throughout the country, in every state, and those local folks that we have out there, who actually, in the one big set of programs I didn't mention is housing, and we have direct housing, guaranteed housing for both multifamily and single family. We have programs for self-help housing, and our people out on the ground provide that face-to-face, direct sort of credit counseling and getting people into their first home and begin to build some assets. Our people in those 500 offices also know these business programs. They know the community development programs. So they're really, at the end of the day, if you're from a rural area, if anything has sort of piqued your interest, I really commend you to find your local office, give them a call. It's not going to be too far away, and they very well might come and see you, and just really dig deep into these programs. So again, thanks for letting me spend some time with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Again, I'm Tricia Kearney-Willis, and I manage the Office of Training and Outreach at the United States Department of the Treasury Community Development Financial Institutions Fund. And it's my great honor and privilege to be here today on both a professional and personal level. And before I tell you a little bit more about the CDFI Fund and programs that would be relevant to you, there are a few people in the audience that I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge. One person in particular, Mark Pinsky. Mark Pinsky is the president and CEO of the trade association that represents CDFI's Opportunity Finance Network. I was so inspired last year by his keynote address during their national conference, in which he chose to focus on the importance of the faith-based community in terms of the work in the early history of community development financing. So thank you, Mark, for being here. Also, Edwin Hong, who is the president and CEO of Seedco Financial. Those are two people. If there's not anyone else in this audience, I'm sure that there are many people you need to know. From my point of view, you need to know those two people because they are very big leaders. They have a great presence in this industry, and they can probably lead you to many more resources well beyond what we actually offer. Also, I mentioned that this was so important to me on a personal level because the reason why I do what I do, why I chose the career that I chose, is because of the early teaching that I actually got in the church. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and I was reared at St. John. Did someone say brr? It's not that cold, at least not this time of the year. But I was raised at St. John Baptist Church under the leadership of the late Reverend Dr. Bennett W. Smith, who was just a foremost leader and a pioneer in community development finance. And I was so touched today when I saw the president of PMBC, Carol Baltimore, here, as well as Charles G. Adams. I was around these esteemed leaders as a very young person, and so I'm just very inspired to see you here today, and I'm glad that you're here. The CDFI Fund was established in 1994 as a bipartisan initiative to increase access to capital in low and moderate income communities nationwide. We provide funding to community development financial institutions as well as community development entities in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, as well as the U.S. Virgin Islands. We're able to do that by providing monetary, financial, as well as technical assistance and tax credit allocations to those entities after they become certified through our program. CDFIs can fall under so many different categories in terms of providing financial assistance. They can be banks at the local, regional, and national level. They can be loan funds. They may be micro lenders, credit unions, and I know many faith-based institutions actually operate credit unions in underserved communities, so it's a great opportunity for you to do that. Our CDFI program actually offers financial and technical assistance. Those are awarded each year through a competitive round, which you can apply for. And one thing that I think it's important to note, if you are thinking about getting into this industry, we actually provide up to $100,000 in technical assistance that can be used for you to purchase new computers or to hire staff or to conduct market research to justify why you actually should be getting even more funding from us once you become certified. So that's something that a lot of people don't know exists, but it's something you can certainly take advantage of. And then certainly through our New Markets Tax Credits program, that provides tax credit allocations to community development entities that are also certified and allows them to then spur further investment in underserved communities by deferring the taxes on qualified community development investments in underserved communities for up to 7 years. So it's a really great opportunity, but even beyond that, I'm sure that many of you are also aware of the First Lady's Let's Move initiative to end childhood obesity. An additional component of that is also the Healthy Food Financing Initiative, which we are a part of. Just recently, we awarded $25 million to community development financial institutions for the sole purpose of them ending food deserts. So many of the communities that you serve don't even have a grocery store within a decent radius of people to be able to go and just buy fresh produce. That's something that everybody should be entitled to and has an opportunity to take advantage of. Also, earlier this year, we launched a capacity building initiative because one of the things that we found, and actually OFN is one of the CDFIs that are actually leading that effort for us, but what we found was that in so many cases, lesser known CDFIs or CDFIs who perhaps may not have been as successful over the years in terms of accessing our capital need to understand and learn from those CDFIs that are more established and more seasoned in that space. So if you go onto our website, which is www.cdfifund.gov, you can find out more about where those trainings are actually being offered. They're being done around the country, and it will continue for a good while, so you can actually learn how to expand capacity. And I would also encourage you to go to our website and find out who the certified community development financial institutions are in your communities, who the certified community development entities are, and contact them because they have the resources, they want to work with you. We know that communities have needs so far beyond housing. Reentry programs, I think, were mentioned, also small business lending. So there are just a variety of issues and concerns that impact underserved communities, and that's what our programs were set up to help alleviate.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow. I think I can speak for the entire group here. We're really grateful. I mean, there are a few things I just want to point out. The commitment and passion of the people on the stage. I mean, they believe in this work, and that makes all of the difference. If you could hear in their voices the excitement and the commitment around providing these resources to get the work done. I want to do two things, and then I know we want to, wrap up. But we want certainly to hear questions from the audience, and we'll have 3 questions. And then also, I just want to ask some of the panelists, if in your kind of closing remarks, if you could give a nugget, what is a real challenge in accessing all of the wonderful things that you talked about, and what kind of advice would you leave us with, and how to overcome that challenge? So, do people have questions in the? There's a microphone. There's one right here.
Thank you.
Oh, there's one there. And there's one right there.
Good afternoon. I have a question. My question is...
Could you introduce yourself and your organization? That'd be great.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Sheila Miller, and I am a member of Hope Christian Church in Beltsville, Maryland. And I am, my question goes to the lady representing Department of Labor. You mentioned several programs, and you have a handout. And my question is, are those funds, will they be earmarked when you say the money goes to the states? Because you never hear about that funding or any of these programs when you're on the local level. So are those funds earmarked specifically for faith-based organizations?
Thank you for asking that question. Some of our funds go to states on a formula basis, and that's the bulk of the Workforce Investment Act money. And in the President's American Jobs Act package, those funds will go to states on a formula basis, except for a competitive part. But some of the programs I mentioned, which we fund with our discretionary dollars, An announcement will be made that can get posted. It will be on our website. Communications will go out. I'll speak to that because that is one of the challenges of how to make sure that you all have access to learning about the availability of these discretionary dollars. We work hard to have a network. Those dollars will be granted based on the strength of the proposals that come in. So there are opportunities, just as many groups already have gotten funding through some of these programs, for example, for re-entry. The stronger the proposals are, we have a set of criteria, we have neutral people who evaluate them based on the criteria, and then the grants are made. So it's a combination. Some are formula, in that all states get the money, but some are on a competitive basis, and I would really encourage you, and I've also included my email address, by the way, on the handout. I can connect you with the people who can get you any specific information on eligibility for any of the programs. I encourage you to take advantage of that resource.
Thank you. And the next panel are going to have successful faith and community-based organizations who have actually accessed these funds.
Yes, and
utilized
Father
them. So-
Greg Boyle, that was the name I was looking
break
for,
it
has
down
been
for
one
us.
of our great leaders. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Robin Barnes, and I'm with Greater New Orleans, Inc., and have been a recipient of EDA funds. Previously, actually worked with Edwin at Seco Financial, and we had SBA, Department of Labor, EDA, CDFI. And I think it's fantastic, first of all, that you're all here together, and that there have been a few award opportunities, Jobs and Innovation Accelerator, I-6 Challenge. But these proposals have been, I think, challenging, to say the least. They've offered the opportunity to put together partnerships and apply for funds. And when they're awarded, there will be multiple sets of compliance issues and match requirements and that sort of thing. And I'm just wondering how, as you're all moving forward, how you're looking at possibly streamlining some of this and making it more accessible to smaller organizations and partners to be able to manage all of this.
That's a great question.
Oh, I get that one.
Yeah, he gave it to you. That's great.
Let me say, we feel your pain, and I mean that with all sincerity. You know, the grants that were just mentioned, they're all interagency, where we have multiple funding streams coming together. What we hear the most from our stakeholders, and you know, we just know this intuitively, is that the federal government is this massive institution. There's a tremendous amount of resources and opportunities to help communities move their initiatives forward. But figuring out how to get a seamless point of entry into that system is difficult. And even if, you know, we know that a lot of the work that matters in the economy, it's multidisciplinary. So to try and cobble together, you know, funding and resources from this vast government becomes very difficult. There's high transaction costs. It takes a lot of time. So the administration has made a concerted effort to try and bring together some of these funding streams, when possible, to make it easier to get to a broader portfolio support. The two grant competitions that were just mentioned, they're number 3 and 4 in this effort. There's other efforts going on across the government as well, but that I've been involved in, and each one of them's gotten a little bit better. We're not to the Holy Grail. What we'd like to do is have a single application, one form, one set of documents, one administrative process to make that easier. There's real challenges for us to do that. It seems like it would be a simple thing to do, but from the cabinet agency perspective, there's another branch of government that makes that hard. There are hundreds of oversight committees and subcommittees of Congress. Every one of them has a little piece of jurisdiction over all of us, and trying to bring these funds together into a flexible pool creates all kinds of regulatory issues. We're trying to work through that, and we've had some strong interest from some of the leadership on both sides of the House of trying to enhance some of the authority we have to make it simpler and flexible, more flexible. That's where we want to go. We know we have further to do in that area.
Just one quick point. I agree with everything that John said, but wanted to also acknowledge that the SBA, along with many of our federal partners, Commerce, Treasury, et cetera, were part of a nationwide process, reducing barriers discussion, where we met with leaders on the front line to hear directly from you, what is it that we are doing as a federal government that's getting in your way? And so all of those results have been compiled just very recently in a report that's available on the web, I believe. So that's one thing I wanted to, I'll make sure that before we end, that you know where the report can be found if you have an interest. And also, as far as the SBA is concerned, what we've done is retooled our website to act as more of a navigator, if you will, to help at least those who are interested in small business startups, to help you move across the federal agencies and be able to enter through our portal, if you will, and then get to where you need to go. Through our SBA Direct feature, if you go to the www.sba.gov and then find SBA Direct and you input your zip code, then that leads you to all of the resources in your area that you may find useful.
Thank you. We have one more. I don't want Jerry to fire me.
Hi. Actually, the question is directed toward you. Hilda Kennedy from AMPAC Tri-State Certified Development Company. And I really appreciate the work and the opportunities for the new markets tax credits and the benefits that they can provide to community, especially low and moderate income communities, and opportunities for faith-based leaders. Is there an expectation that the recent round of new markets tax credit applications is there a concern that that may not be funded, and where is that process? And what's the vision for the use of those credits for this term? Do you know?
Well, we don't have a concern that it's not going to be funded. I mean, each year our programs are up for rediscussion and up for reappropriation. So this year funding is slated to occur. As far as the second part of your question, I don't really know if I can answer that because it just gets into a gray area that we really wouldn't discuss openly, just for proprietary reasons. But certainly, you know, to your point, the New Markets Tax Credit is a program that actually offers just wonderful resources, whether you're looking to do housing development or charter schools, grocery stores, creating jobs in your community. It's a wonderful resource to take advantage of. And so again, I would just encourage you to log on to our website, www.cdfifund.gov, and look into who your certified community development entities are around the country, as well as who the certified CDFIs are, because they're looking for new ways to invest, they're looking for new ways to partner, and they will support many of the activities in your communities.
Thank you. I want to thank all of our panelists heartily for all the information that you gave. I hope you get to stick around for a little while, and for the hard work that you do. Thank you so much. I think immediately next, we have a panel of practitioners, folk on the ground who have successfully utilized many of these programs, and they have some things to share. So I'm going to ask our panelists to make their way as we take a couple of minutes break. We are getting started. We have panelists that have come from across the country to share with us their learnings and their good work and some tools that we will find useful. And I know we are a bit behind, so we're going to try and be very focused because your time is precious. So I'm going to start off introducing our panelists very briefly, and I think some of their information you can find in the materials for today. So I'm going to briefly do that, and then we're going to just launch right into it. And we want to hear what they have to say, all the fantastic things that they've accomplished. First, we have Wendy Bauman, President and Chief Vision Officer of the Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative. I love that title. I think I'm gonna change my title. The Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation is a statewide economic development corporation. Her leadership ensures the achievement of WWBIC's mission and upholds the philosophy of serving businesses owned by women, minorities, and low-wealth individuals in Wisconsin. She's the former director of the Small Business Development at the Milwaukee Enterprise Center, and her credentials and experiences and enthusiasm have been key in obtaining the objectives set forth for WWBIC in developing new and innovative models for business assistance programming and small business development. She also served as the executive director of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Wisconsin. During that time, the chamber was honored as the Hispanic Chamber of the Year by the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Under her direction, the organization was recognized on a state and national level, increasing membership by over 500%. Baumann has worked at the Council for the Spanish-Speaking as Director of Development and Research, and prior to that, as a program coordinator for job placement program for disadvantaged individuals at Goodwill Industries. Next, we have Father Greg Boyle, best known as Father Greg by all who meet him. He has been an advocate for at-risk and gang-involved youth in Los Angeles and around the world for over 25 years. Born in LA as one of 8 siblings, Father Greg entered the Order of the Society of Jesus and was ordained a priest in 1984. Before founding Homeboy Industries, Father Greg taught at Loyola High School and worked with Christian-based communities in Cochabamba, I hope I said that right, Bolivia. He was appointed as pastor of Dolores Mission in the Boyle Heights neighborhood of LA in 1986, where he served through 1992. Homeboy Industries traces its roots to a Jobs for a Future program created in 1988 by Father Greg at Dolores Mission Parish. In an effort to address the escalating problems and unmet needs of gang-involved youth, Father Greg and the community developed positive alternatives, including establishing an elementary school, a daycare program, and finding legitimate employment for young people. JFF's success demonstrated that many gang members are eager to leave the dangerous and destructive life on the streets. In 1992, as a response to the civil unrest in LA, Father Greg launched the first business, Homeboy Bakery, with the mission to create an environment that provided training, work experience, and above all, the opportunity for rival gang members to work side by side. The success of the bakery created the groundwork for additional businesses, thus prompting JFF to become an independent nonprofit organization. Today, Homeboy Industries nonprofit economic development enterprises include Homeboy Bakery, Homeboy Silkscreen, Homeboy Homegirl Merchandise, and Homegirl Cafe. Next, we have Dr. Robert Lee III. After serving as rector of Church of Our Savior in Jacksonville, Florida, Dr. Lee was called to establish a new kind of ministry. Having created the concept for Fresh Ministries in 1988 and incorporating it into a working 501c3 in 1989, Dr. Lee elevated the organization to a full-time ministry in 1994. It was his dream to bring his ministry out of the church and into the community to serve all faiths and races. His interfaith, interracial outreach unites people in need and the people who have resources to share with those less fortunate. Dr. Lee's mission for Fresh Ministries and its partners is to utilize all available resources as tools to empower individuals in need, with opportunities to improve their lives and those of their families. Those opportunities provided through the many programs of Fresh Ministries include work through education, economic redevelopment, health initiatives, housing, and communities throughout the world. Currently serving as a non-stipendiary canon for outreach and ecumenism in the Diocese of Florida, he has also served parishes in Connecticut and Florida. He has served as the chairman of the Interfaith Subcommittee of the 2005 Super Bowl Host Committee in Jacksonville and as a director for St. Mary's Outreach Ministry in Jacksonville, the Samaritan Center, Dignity You Wear, Christian Healing Ministries, Jacksonville Interfaith Council, Habitat for Humanity of Jacksonville, Jacksonville Urban League, and the Florida Council of Churches. Next, we have Sister Corrine Florek. For the past 31 years, Sister Florek, an Adrian Dominican sister, has been working in the field of community and economic development as a manager, educator, consultant, financial administrator, and strategic planner. Whether administering a 50-member craft cooperative in Appalachia or managing an international loan fund, her work has focused on using capital innovatively to empower low-income people. Corrine received an MBA from the University of Notre Dame and has worked with a number of loan funds, including the Institute for Community Economics in Massachusetts, Keystone Community Ventures, and Women's Initiative in San Francisco, the Adrian Dominican Sisters Alternative Investment Fund in Michigan, and the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, a program of the U.S. Catholic Bishops' Loan and Economic Development Grants Program. Currently, Corrine manages the Mercy Partnership Fund for Mercy Investment Services, Inc., and the Religious Communities Investment Fund, a collaborative fund sponsored by 11 Catholic women's religious congregations. She served on a number of boards, including the Community Initiative Subcommittee of Catholic Healthcare West, Transfer USA, and Wages, a nonprofit organization that develops eco-friendly house cleaning cooperatives with low-income Latina women. And then I think last but not least, we have Theda McFerrin Keel, who is a registered nurse with advanced specialization as a rehabilitation nurse. She holds additional degrees in sociology, psychology, and biology. Ms. McFerrin Keel also has a Master of Arts degree in American Indian Studies at the University of Arizona and has also earned master's degrees in community health education and applied social research, sociology, anthropology, both at West Virginia University. She's presently pursuing a PhD in public and community health at the University of Maryland with emphasis on survey research methodology and statistical database development. In addition, Ms. McFerrin Keel has founded the nonprofit organization Wind Hollow Foundation, which focuses on American Indian needs nationally. She teaches, lectures, and writes nationally on cultural awareness issues, healthcare policy, health education, traditional medicine, and spiritual beliefs of American Indians, access issues for minority populations, and community consensus and coalition building. Ms. McFerrin Keel is an enrolled member of a southeastern Cherokee tribe and a hereditary member of the Lower Porch Creek Nation of Alabama. She has concurrently attended Johns Hopkins School of Public Health with a focus on a second PhD in biostatistics and epidemiological studies. Wow. This is a great group. I mean, I'm impressed. We should just applaud them. Sit down. All right. So I think what we want to do, and we want to try to keep it as brief as possible because we do want to get to the work group sessions where we can really roll up our sleeves and dig in. But very briefly, I want to ask each of the panelists to provide a brief overview of some of their direct experiences with some of the federal government programs that we have heard about and maybe some that we haven't, and give us a sense of the type of impact it has had on your communities that you serve.
And I, like Roberta, am from Wisconsin, but not every woman from Wisconsin is 5'2" and under, just so you know. Thrilled and honored to be here with all of you today, and I thank Jerry Flavin for the introduction. So I sort of start out the brief comments about jobs, 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 and jobs. And anybody who creates his or her own job, much less creates other jobs via micro business or small business, are truly our cities, our counties, our rural communities, our states, and our nation's heroes. And that's sort of the center of our table and the work that we do at the Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation. I will talk about some of the initiatives we do very briefly. Data tells, stories sell, and so I have to start out with a few stories. But if we have to center our organization, and next year we'll be 25 years old, every single day with our 35-some member staff, we center that, and what we get up and do every single day is try to provide hope and opportunity to individuals who, again, want to start a business, improve their economic well-being, create jobs, or what have you. And we do that through a variety of different things that I will share with you. I'll weave it first through a couple stories. The first one is Daphne Wilson. I've known Daphne now for almost 18 years. I've been at the organization going on 18 years. And she came very early on and came in a business incubator that at the time we managed, a high-touch empowerment incubator in the heart of Milwaukee. She came in, she was an electrical engineer, and she started her business. We helped her get centered, we helped her create the professionalism around that industry and around that business, and she slowly began to get contracts and was really being quite successful. She moved out and moved to a suburb called West Dallas. And about 3 years ago, so about 15 years later, after we first had touched her as a small business, she turned back to us, partially because of the global economic crisis, and turned to us for a microloan. We provided that microloan to her. She employs about 6 individuals, and we got her through that difficult period of time. That's one snapshot. Another snapshot is Delilah Suter and her husband Dana. Delilah is a nurse and lives in Racine, actually one of our highest unemployment areas in the state of Wisconsin. She was a nurse and worked with many elderly individuals, and she saw a niche for a business providing a community-based residential facility, or a CBRF, within the community. Excellent experience being a nurse, but didn't really know how to start a business. She went through our business education classes to get that acumen and then turned to us for a loan. She opened up her first community-based residential facility and employed about 15 people. She came back for a second loan, opened up her second community-based residential facility, employed about 45 people. Came back for her third loan, and now she employs close to 70 individuals through 3 distinct microloans in the city of Racine. It's a great story. Third one, not all things work out, or sometimes things take longer. This woman's name is Lisa Crum, and believe it or not, she owns a bakery. It's like a great name for a baker, Lisa Crum. And she came to us, again, 15-some years ago, was a great baker and baking for the local Starbucks or coffee shops of the world, but really wanted to have that own shingle hung out with her name on it. So we provided her a microloan. Very difficult, again, the baking industry, if you know bakers, it's weird schedules, it's weird stuff, but she was an excellent sweet baker. So opened up a retail shop and struggled for 2 years. We bought from her, we promoted, she had some business education, we helped her with financial acumen, but she struggled. She had to close it. She kept on paying the microloan back, went back to doing the wholesale bakery, came to us again with a partner. Could you help us out? She kept on paying her loan. We said, yes, we will. Went into a new location with a partnership. We provided a second loan to her. In this case, the partners that she went with were not necessarily above-table partners, and that business also failed. She started paying us back and eventually couldn't. We wrote the loan off for about $13,000. 4 or 5 years passed. Lisa Crum came back to us and said, I have a great opportunity in the Milwaukee public market, brand new public market with EDA funds, by the way, to go. And there we thought there was promise, because she was going to be embraced in something that was already happening with 25 other businesses. We saw it, but there was no way on earth I could bring it to my loan committee, much myself, look at another microloan when I wrote off $13,000. So we said, Lisa, this is the deal, and of course she needed more money. So we looked and leveraged contacts and information and networks we had in the community, and we came back with a package where she was going to take on and pay back that loan of $13,000. We got her a bank loan with a cosigner. So now, 5 years later, she still runs Lisa Crum's Bakery, C. Adams Bakery in the Milwaukee public market. And if you ever go to Milwaukee, you have to go there for these great pastries. If I were in Milwaukee, you'd all be eating them right now. And paid back our loan of $13,000, did not miss a payment on that new loan, and 1 year ago came back to us again for another microloan to open up her second location. Combined, she employs about 25 full-time individuals. So those are the snapshots, those are the stories that sell of weaving these programs together. As I shared, we've been around for a little bit, 25 years, but we started out, we were one of the first SBA-funded women's business centers. We were in the very first round of SBA microloan funds. Jody Raskine is in the room today, wave your hand, Jody, who heads up the SBA microloan program. We were in one of the first rounds to be a CDFI in the state of Wisconsin and still have that. We have USDA funds through RBEG and RMAP. One program we do have some EDA funds, but through a subcontract. And one program not mentioned here today was Department of Health and Human Services and the Assets for Independence Act related to financial literacy and financial awareness education, as well as the Office of Community Service, providing businesses to low-income individuals. So we've been able to take those programs and not only try them out, but really withstand the test of time and stay in these meaningful programs. We borrowed millions and millions of dollars from the SBA microloan program, have lent it out to hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs and small businesses throughout the state of Wisconsin, and the program really works. So it is taking those different programs and pulling them together and leveraging them. When I came 18 years ago, we really were singly a women's business center. It was me, myself, and I, and a one-person individual. We had the lower level, I called it the lower level, it was the basement, of an old mansion. And I got there with a little desk and said, I think we're going to do something about it, and began to study these federal programs and leverage them with the local CDBGs of the world and the local state funds, corporations, foundations, individuals. So 18 years later, really proud to say we have 4 offices. Our budget is $3.2 million. Our loan portfolio is $6 million. In 2010, we had 413 live applications for loans. We approved 103 of them that totaled $3.2 million. And every single day, we believe and we know we're impacting lives on an economic basis. I want to talk just a bit briefer about the SBA microloan program specifically, but again, really encourage you to weave those programs together, and they can. And in my years, I've seen even more those heads working together and saying that it's great to be an SBA microlender and to be in the microloan program with USDA, so you really can merge them together, and I would think of doing that. So the SBA program, specifically the microloan program, you're basically borrowing from the federal government, low interest, very, very, very reasonable low interest funds over a long period of time, patient capital. Loans go out 10 years approximately, right, Jody? Some as little as 0%. I think the highest we've ever paid for an SBA microloan, and we've had 11 SBA microloans, is 2.5%. So it's long-term patient capital that you in turn lend it out on the streets of your city, county, state, or rural community from $1,000 to $50,000. Our loans right now, because of different programs, are $1,000 to $100,000, but our average loan size is $27,000. In addition to the borrowing the money from the federal government, you receive, depending on how much you have outstanding borrowed, technical assistance grant dollars that allow you to employ the good people at your organization, to find those micro borrowers and entrepreneurs, to work with them on getting the loan closed, and to service that loan through the life of that loan. So I just wanted to sort of make a brief piece on that. So again, I close with thanks, and I close with, I know all of you are about providing hope and opportunity, and again, without those two things in our world, we don't have anything. So thank you for all the work you do.
All right, we need to be very brief so that we can hear some specific questions. So we're just about 2 or 3 minutes each. If you could kind of just, I know, it's tough. We started a little late, unfortunately. Give us some good nuggets of information. And we have next Father Greg Boyle.
Thank you very much. Testing, test, there we go. It's a privilege to be with all of you. I represent Homeboy Industries. I was born in 1988 when I was pastor of the poorest parish in the city of LA, nestled in the middle of 2 public housing projects, Pico Gardens and Aliso Village. We had 8 gangs at war with each other there, making it the place of the highest concentration of gang activity in the whole city of LA, where we have 1,100 gangs and 86,000 gang members. I buried my first young person killed because of this sadness in 1988, and I buried my 176th a month ago. So we started to do a lot of things. We started a school, and that brought gang members to the church, and then they said if only we had jobs, and then myself and the women in the parish marched to all the factories that surrounded the housing projects in search of felony-friendly employers, and that wasn't so forthcoming. So we started businesses in 1992, first with Homeboy Bakery, and then a month later, Homeboy Tortillas, and once we had plural, we came up with the highfalutin Homeboy Industries, as if there was any industry involved in this. And not everything worked. Homeboy Plumbing was not a huge success, as I recall. Who knew? People didn't want gang members in their homes. You know, I did not see that coming. So now we're the largest gang intervention, rehab, and reentry program in the country. We didn't intend to do that, but we've just sort of evolved into that. And so we have 15,000 folks who walk through our doors every year. We serve the entire county of LA. Wherever there's a zip code where there's a gang of members from that gang have wandered in, we always have about 300 employees, rivals, enemy gang members working side by side with each other. In a bakery and a silk screen, a diner in the city hall, the only place you can get food, Homegirl Cafe, we're in 27 farmers markets. But it's also a therapeutic community, which was sort of an important part that we added probably in the last 5 years. Therapy, we get a SAMHSA grant from the Department of Health and Human Services, about $1.2 million over 3 years. It's kind of substance abuse focused for young people recently released from detention, ages 14 to 25. We get a grant from the Department of Office of Disability Employment Policy. We're a sub-grantee on that, an Add Us In grant. It's a helping physically and emotionally disabled gang members who work for us. And we got an earmark, congressional appropriation through the Department of Labor, ETA, Employment and Training Administration. I'd like to think Homeboy Industries is a bridge to somewhere. And then we got $200,000 for that. But that's helped us to have our solar panel installation training program, which is an interesting thing. You know, I have to tell you, one of the challenges is that I had two homies who were supposed to come with me, but apparently their resumes were too long for the Secret Service. So, but I mention that only because they run Homeboy Industries, you know, and I couldn't get them in, so I think in New York City it's something like 50% unemployment for ex-offenders. In Los Angeles it's 70% unemployment for ex-offenders. If I can't get them into this meeting, I don't know what hope we have, honest to God, you know, because it's not just an economic issue, it's a public safety issue, and we just have a court order to relieve the overcrowding in our prisons in California, and so lots of prisoners are going to be released. They've been prepared for nothing in prison. Nothing awaits them when they get out. At least in my state, we've lost our right to be surprised that we have the highest recidivism rate in the country. I mention that because we have the solar panel installation training program. We're very grateful to the ETA and the Department of Labor for funding, giving us $200,000 for that. What it offers to contractors are nationally certified, trained people who know how to install solar panels. Here's the rub. They're all felons. But contractors need these people because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to do this, and I'm handing them felons who do. And so finally, it's kind of a breakthrough. You know, I think we have placed 47 just year to date who've been able to be hired. And it's because contractors are able to finally say, all right, we'll look past this and know that everybody's a whole lot more than the worst thing they ever did. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So Dr. Robert Lee, and certainly I think people appreciate all of the amazing work and really want to try and understand better the how. You know, what resources were you able to wrangle? How were you able to do it and get it done? I think that'll be very useful. And in just 3 minutes. Right, Jerry?
Looking for miracles again.
That's right.
Well, let me just say, by way of editorial, we run across some of the same issues with convicted felons, those with felonious records, who we've taken through welding programs, or others who can work in shipyards and do programs and jobs provided for them, but they're running into problems with regulatory agencies, et cetera, et cetera. So that's collectively something that we need to work on. Let me say that I'm really heartened to see so many folks from the faith-based community here and working, because we have so much that we can do. For so many generations, we didn't do it or didn't think we could do it. We did things out of our congregations, et cetera, but together there is so much that we can do, and Joshua Dubois and others who are enabling this, many, many thanks. We do things at Fresh Ministries and our international arm, Be the Change International, initiatives all over the world, from health initiatives, housing, economic employment, all of that. But I want to focus for our purposes today on economic development and some of the help that we got from the various agencies, and particularly EDA. One of our folks came to me about 10 years ago and said, you know what, we don't have a business incubator in the core city neighborhood of Jacksonville. And Jacksonville is an unusual city because it has, it's very, very large. They consolidated the city and the county years ago, so it's a big issue. One of the issues is there's this old myth that most of the violent crime and most of the issues that take place in the core city neighborhoods are done by minorities to minorities, so it's easiest just to wall off that area, ignore it, let them take care of themselves, and then expand and provide economic opportunity to those outside that core city neighborhood. And we took that on with some fear and trembling, but also with some passion. and appeared before, I made a speech before the City Council and Jacksonville Economic Development Council that said, we believe that there are assets in the core city neighborhood. We believe that there are people who want to work. We believe that they can provide a lot, and we think we can get these kids back off the streets. Father Greg touched on it. You know, you can't judge people by the worst thing that they ever did or the worst thing that they ever got involved with. And if you've ever been on the streets, and a lot of us have here, you know how they get there. So we took that on and decided we were going to try, in the worst part of town, a business incubator. And we got a lot of people. Partnering is critical to the establishment of this, not only with the federal government, but with each other. You know, the faith-based groups, for people to come into this crazy idea, we had to have other faith-based pastors throughout the community sponsoring it, talking in their congregations about it, getting people to have faith in it and to come. We had to get business leaders. We put together a board that was comprised of lawyers, accountants, PR people, government officials, who could hold accountable these people in their businesses. The SBA, the Jacksonville Chamber of Commerce, the university systems, all combined to help us select people who are ready to go into the business incubator. Then we went to EDA and Willie Taylor, and they gave us an initial grant, a leap of faith of $850,000. That was 8 years ago. And I just want to read to you now, in that time, we have created 1,602 new jobs. We expect in the next 2 years, 600 more jobs, over $80 million in new revenue, and the return on that investment, that initial $850,000, is more than an 11-to-1 return. And guess what else? It was all established in a forgotten neighborhood. And what happens in a forgotten neighborhood, when you put a business incubator in there, the statistics show that 80% of those folks will be successful if you do it the right way. And 80% of those folks who are graduated from there will move within a 1.5 mile radius of that place. So what happens to that neighborhood? You recover it. You get a tax base back, you get people back, you've restored people, community, and hope. And hope is critical in all of this. Now we have people coming in from all over. Last year we were the International Business Incubator of the Year. This year we have the #1 Business Client of the Year. And I'm saying this just to show you, I'm very proud of our folks and what they've done, but to show you what a community working together from an initial idea of faith can do. We also, on the other end of things, created what's called the Jacksonville Hospitality Institute. And taking a page out of that last chapter I just described, created a board that's made up of CEOs and managers of the hotels, the major restaurants, et cetera, and got them to help us set up training programs for people in the hospitality industry, where they could come in as maids, front desk people, concierge, whatever it is, and it could be, and this ended up being a feeder station for folks. Well, this has been extremely successful also. We've graduated hundreds of people in the last couple of years. Until the economic downswing, there was a retention of jobs of over 80%. It's over 60% now. Everything's cutting back, but we're very proud of that. Those are short-term results of some very intentional, very focused efforts in economic development. And I can tell you story after story about who it's affected. But let me say this, and I just want to close with this. We can't just look, we can't get siloed. And I was appreciative of the fact that John Fernandez was speaking about this. We must do things in an interagency sort of a fashion. I was honored to be serving on a presidential committee in the last few years and spoke of this to the president. He spoke of the same issues that Secretary Fernandez spoke of, how difficult it is to do the interagency work. But we must find ways to do this, because in the long run, what we've got to do is raise up a generation of children who have an equal chance to live healthy, happy, productive lives. And it can't just be economic focus. They have got to have a house that supplies a stable platform for their families to live in. Yes, they have to have jobs to pay for the house. They have to have health initiatives that help them. They've got to have solid education where they didn't have education before, et cetera. This all works together. And my goal in Washington in the next few years is to make sure that as we take what we're doing in Jacksonville to our other areas around the world, in Haiti and Africa and wherever, that we begin to really function as partners, not only amongst ourselves, but as an interagency group here in Washington that enables us to come to a pile of money somewhere where we have an idea that's holistic, not having to just patchwork different grants together. But that's my soapbox for today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Sister Corinne Flora? Oh, you're gonna, okay, we just want to make sure we,
Yeah, I'll be short.
okay.
I'll be short. No, you could leave all that up. I just do better standing as well. I'm an old teacher, you know. I'm Sister Corinne Florek, and I'm a little bit of an anomaly on this panel because I'm here in front of you as an investor. I'm not running a nonprofit. I'm not on the streets. I'm standing in front of you representing Catholic religious women in this country who have built Catholic school systems, who have built Catholic hospitals, who have reached out and helped build Catholic parishes, and through their labor, through having to sell some of those assets, had to create retirement funds because nobody was going to take care of us, and have committed some of those retirement funds to community investing. We put our lives on the line because not only do we believe in charity, which our whole life was giving, but we believe in justice. And we knew that we had to empower people, but it takes both. So you have to keep doing the charity, you have to keep doing the grants, but we took our retirement monies and we invested it. And we invested it when there were no loan loss reserves, there was no collateral, there was no track record. You ask Cliff Rosenthal of the Credit Union National Federation Association when we made him a $30,000 loan and he had nothing. You ask Mark Pinsky, all the community development loan funds that had nothing, and we were their first investors. You ask the number of nonprofits that we have invested in because no bank would look at them. We put our retirement money on the line. And I'm standing in front of you today. I'll let go of the rest of my speech. Our money came from our labor. People laugh at bingos, but they built a lot of schools. My own community is only 800 women. The Mercy Sisters, whose fund I run, is 5,000 in the U.S. There are 59,000 women religious in this country. Not all of them can afford to do this investing, but those of us who can are. We need to have programs like the government putting in that equity to leverage. I'm not saying that's not an important role, but you know where my sadness is? That I have a hard time talking to parishioners about taking this risk. That I have a hard time talking to dioceses about taking this risk. That I have a hard time talking to other levels saying, take the risk. I'm sorry, but it's time for us to not be the only ones taking this risk. I want you to be talking to your retirement trustees. I want you to be talking to all those trustees who will say, this is dangerous, and say, how much more of a track record do you need? I worked with Bishop McGee and the Episcopal Fund to get a fund going in Detroit, Michigan. The hardest part was talking to those parishes and getting people to open their hands and invest in projects that had track records. Oh my gosh, we talk about put your security, know your treasure is where your heart is, put your security in God, not here. And people are hanging on to their retirement funds like, I can't let go, I can't let go. Don't let the principle erode. Oh my God, it's the golden egg. Why aren't we saying this in our churches? Why aren't we saying, open your hands? Yes, keep giving us charity, because I know you need them to support your churches, but also look at that retirement fund. Give some of that money, you will get it back. There's also something that's happening right now, and it says, do well and do good. You can make so much % interest. Oh, baloney. Come on, do good. Forget earning interest. Yes, we do. We charge 2%, 3%, because we're looking at, present value of the money. The reality is one of my funds is an asset allocation in a retirement fund. It's an actual asset allocation. I have to meet a benchmark. I have to meet allocations. I'm standing up there with investment managers, but I'll tell you who was the winner in the last couple of years. My portfolio. I haven't lost a cent. So, that's my 3 minutes. I'll forget all the rest of the talk, but I want you to go back, start talking to the trustees of your retirement funds and get them to invest in community development. Thank you.
It's fantastic. We could be here all day. They're gonna have to kick us out of the White House because this is really fantastic. And last up, you ready? Okay, gonna come up here.
Here you go. And I won't be short. I'm an American Indian, I'm a rural person, and we deserve our time at the podium too. Sheo, greetings in our native language of Cherokee. How many of y'all here are enrolled tribal members in a federally or state recognized tribe? That's why I'm not going to be short. As American Indians, we're still here in this country. And there's a very stereotypical belief about us. Bingo, lotteries, casinos, oil monies, revenues. Yes, those things exist, but they don't fund us. Some of the highest rates of poverty in this country or in the world exist on our reservations. The stereotypical belief about substance abuse, it's real. Our worst enemy is ourselves. Most of us don't live on reservations. Only 27 to 33% of American Indians live on reservations. The rest of us are mainstream. We leave the reservation, we come to a city or a town to get a job. It doesn't work out and we go back. And we keep repeating the cycle over and over. We're considered transient in many tribal groups because we travel from our reservation and then come back. And we do it cyclically around jobs, seasonal work. We have a lot of issues and problems. And one of those is we have got to, as American Indians, utilize what we have and leverage it. We have funds, we have resources, we have special programs that exist for our use only under our treaty rights. They aren't a gift. They're our right. It's under our monies. It's up to us to use it wisely. But we are very narrow-minded in the aspect that we look at just that program, and we don't look at all these others that are out there that you saw the panelists about today. Because most of us, our tribal monies don't reach into the cities and the other places we go to get jobs or where we move when we get an education. Most of us who leave and get educations don't go back. There's nothing to go back to. If I wanted to go and practice as a lawyer on most reservations, I would have to know Indian law because we have a different set of laws, sovereign laws. I'm not going to go get an education and come back to a place that has nothing for me to work at and to bring my family to. We've got to build the infrastructures. As American Indians, we have a culture to be proud of, and most of us are rural. There's a large percentage that were moved to the urban areas, so there are large urban Indian centers. Every one of y'all that are from a large city west of the Mississippi, with the exclusion of New York and Memphis, and yeah, I think Memphis is a large city, but I'm from Alabama. What do I know? We have large Indian populations in those cities. So what I'm talking to you about today is relevant to you because 9 out of 10 of you will have some American Indian people in your communities who will come to your incubators and will ask you, how can they access programs? They can access them just like anyone else. They aren't restricted to just Indian programs. Wind Hollow Foundation is my foundation that my husband and I founded and fund and have for almost 20 years. We work nationwide on American Indian issues in 4 areas: health, economic development, education, and culture. He passed away 5 years ago. My kids were grown, and, I guess it's that middle age itch, like 7-year itch. You decide, well, you can go do some things you hadn't done before. Normally, I live here in Washington, D.C., and go and work different projects around the country. I was asked to come to Anadarko, Oklahoma, which has the largest concentration of Indian tribes in the world. 7 tribes are there in one county. It's also one of the listed in the Federal Registry and on the ranking system as one of the poorest counties in America. The Delaware Nation had me come, and I helped them with 2 projects and got them funded under the Department of Energy, because what we do as Wind Hollow is help leverage money, help you develop the resources. We help put together the pieces for you at no cost, and have for almost 20 years. I went there and worked with the Delaware Nation, and I helped them get a grant from the Department of Energy for solar panels on the tribal administration buildings, and with the Department of Transportation for a compressed natural gas-powered bus that would take people in their tribal areas to job sites in the town. While I was there, I realized that I could take everything I was doing around the country and bring it to Anadarko, Oklahoma. It is a rural area that is primarily ranchers and farmers. The peanut factory went out of, closed down due to subsidies and peanuts being moved more and more overseas. So that whole region of the country, southwest Oklahoma, the panhandle of Texas, corner of New Mexico, peanut industry ended. So a lot of the farmers and ranchers who had invested in irrigation equipment to grow peanuts wound up upside down, owing a lot of money with the subsidies gone and no way of repaying it. They've now experienced some extreme drought. Cattle are being sold off. The farmers and ranchers in our area have gone, by census data, from $50,000 a year profit to less than $15,000 a year being the average income there. And those are the non-Indians. The Indians are worse. There was a factory there that made carpet. They outsourced and went overseas. The town is dying. The oil industry, despite what we're paying at the pumps, it's in a decline. So the whole area is in a decline. It's not just tribal people, but it's a rural area. We don't have transportation. We don't have street corridors that much. A lot of the things that you use in your programs, we don't have. So we have a different perspective. And that was why I went to Anadarko. I took everything I knew, pulled up roots, went to Anadarko, and put Wind Hollow in there. I hired local people. I bought a building for $1. It was hit by a tornado. There was some damage. I had to pick up pieces of it. But we put it back together. Local workers, the people who couldn't get jobs, when y'all talk about felons and people who can't get jobs, that's what we target. Because a large percentage of our people have records and they can't get jobs. If there are jobs, they would go to people who didn't have records there. So the ones who come back and have no other place to go because they have to go home back to their tribe, that's the only choice they have. We have 60% unemployment or more, and that's normal people. So Wind Hollow went there, and I went there 18 months, about 2 years ago. Last spring, the Department of Human Services, the state of Oklahoma, came to us and said, we have a lot of chronically unemployed people. The state got some stimulus money. Would you take some of our work, some of these people under a work program to go to work for you? Because we had just finished the building and opened it, the office building that I got for $1. I said, sure. I could use 2 or 3 people. I wound up with 139. Needless to say, we were overwhelmed. But we took those stimulus dollars and we put people to work, but we did it with a difference. My background is social science and rehab. We put in where if you came to us and you were under a court order or you had counseling sessions or substance abuse problems, we let you off work to go to those meetings. We help support you in them. We help with network in the community. There are 34 organizations we've networked in the helping on our projects and programs. We took that stimulus funding and put those 139 people to work, and we have handouts down here that y'all can get and read and see how we did it, and used that one source of funding and developed those jobs to where we took the training program. The city gave us some old houses to tear down that were condemned. There are 400 in the town of Anadarko alone that are condemned and derelict and in need of being torn down, and the people don't have the money to do it, nor does the town. The town is 6,000 people. So we put our people to work doing that. We found out, guess what? It seems there's things like asbestos, mold, and lead paint, and we couldn't meet OSHA and EPA requirements. So we had to develop training and go out and get OSHA level training brought in to train our workers to go in and tear down these houses. Well, we found out there's no one really doing that under these certifications in our area. So we built in a training program. We've trained 90 people now in asbestos removal, approximately 30 in lead-based paint removal. We've got 17 through the mold certification and fixing to take the new class. The people that are with us, we ask to stay a year to go through all the training and get their certifications, which they own and can take with them anywhere and get a job. We found out with this that because of their felony convictions and all or other things, most of our people are under DUIs, driving under the influence. And that's what their criminal record is. And sometimes it's repetitive. So we started a company of our own to put them to work, a for-profit company. We're now a woman-owned, American Indian-owned, minority, small business, hub-based zone, economically disadvantaged enterprise. I fit every profile there is but a veteran. And I just ain't had time to go join anything yet. And we're now fixing to take 35 of those workers within the coming year and put them to work at federal wage level on military bases. We're fixing to take the next intake of workers into our program for the year cycle. We've networked with the tribes, and while we were doing all this, true to my background, I did a survey. And since I have the qualifications to interpret the data, I came up with this. There were 84 people in our small community that filled out our questionnaire when we asked them would they be interested in a small business, and most of them already had one because what they were doing was out of their house. And most of it was women supporting their families and children and their family members working with them, making foodstuffs, selling in the area as tribal people at powwows, and also in regalia. Y'all know what regalia is? That's what y'all expect us to look like with the feathers and the bustles and all. Well, that's what they were we make and sell it. And so they were selling that too. And then we had other businesses like, we have non-Indians as well. Upholstery company that needed help, other things that if they had a little impetus. People told us that for as little as $300 in a sewing machine, because theirs was broke, they could make a living. Not rich, just make a living. So we sat down and went to work, and we wrote a grant with the USDA, and we're funded for a small business incubator. And we took those 84 and we started working with them. We then wrote another grant for a rural business enterprise grant that we were funded for from USDA. We're putting in a commercial kitchen now, so they can produce and sell those foods because they can't sell them under the new laws without having a commercial kitchen. We're partnered with Oklahoma University in designing that, and Oklahoma State University in providing the health laws training and compliance issues that are needed. We also wrote and we're funded, and by the way, we're doing this as a nonprofit, not as a tribe. I'm not a tribe, it's just me, I'm the Indian. We're doing it as a competitive grant system. We were funded under the Department of Justice for a second chance reentry program, and then we partnered with the WIA programs, the Work Incentive Action programs, and put people to work. We then took that and saw that our opportunity also, because we were working with OSHA standards and others, we wrote a grant and got partnered with the EPA, to where we're providing training to local contractors to get them to the level that they are the supervisory staff and can oversee our workers and hire them when we finish training them, because we can't hire everyone ourselves. And we've done all this in 18 months. So I want to leave you with one word: leverage. Leverage. Thank y'all.
Thank you all so much for your vision, your commitment, your innovation, your courage. We are grateful. For the folk in this room who have some similar experiences, I think this has been a great opportunity to hear and learn from one another so that we can continue to do the work on the ground. I don't think we have time for any questions.
You know what, I don't think we do either, but just kind of an announcement here. We're going to be breaking right now, and we're going to move into the breakout rooms, and all these wonderful people, and I think they did a terrific job. Let's hear it from them again.